So today I decided that I want to give my 2 cents on the next gen console war. And I'm just going to come out and say that I'm actually really excited for both of these consoles, and I'm planning on picking up both of them eventually. I think that they both have their own pros and cons, and so far I think that the Xbox Series X is actually the more impressive console to me, but the PS5 definitely has more impressive exclusive first party games to me. I also think that the PS5 has a more interesting controller. It seems like a bigger improvement over the PS4 controller, and the Series X controller seems more like an incremental improvement over the Xbox One controller. The Series X controller definitely doesn't look bad or anything, but I've always slightly preferred the PS4 controller, and this seems like the PS5 has like the perfect mix of an Xbox and a PlayStation controller, and I'm really excited to use it. I know a lot of people think it looks stupid. I think it looks kind of cool, and I hope that it feels really good in my hands. But one huge advantage that the Series X has, for me at least, over the PS5 is the backwards compatibility. Sony have confirmed that the PS5 will not necessarily be able to play every PS4 game. They think it'll be able to play most of them, but we still don't really have that great of an idea of how many games it's going to be able to play. Whereas Microsoft has confirmed that the Series X will be able to play every kind of game that the Xbox One could play, which also includes the Xbox 360 and original Xbox games that were made compatible for the Xbox One. So really, the Series X is going to be like the ultimate Xbox. It's going to be able to play 4 generations of Xbox consoles, and that's something that I've always wanted from a PlayStation console, specifically the PS5. And I just absolutely love that Microsoft embraces backwards compatibility so hard because I really care a lot about games preservation, and I personally like to replay games a lot, especially during more quiet periods in gaming when there aren't really that many big releases that I'm interested in. And I don't really like keeping hundreds of consoles around and having them hooked up to my TV. It's just a lot more convenient to have 1 or 2 consoles that can pretty much play all the games that I want them to. Also, it's been confirmed that the Series X will have slightly better specs than the PS5, which isn't the biggest deal in the world, but it might mean that games will look and run slightly smoother. And I quickly want to talk about Halo Infinite, which is going to be like the flagship game for the Series X. To me, Halo Infinite looks pretty good, and I'm really excited to play it, although there definitely has been controversy around this game, specifically around the game's graphics. Personally, I think the graphics are okay. I think it looks pretty good. It's definitely not as graphically impressive as Halo 5 because Halo 5 had more detail, at least compared to this early trailer. But I feel like Halo Infinite's art style is a lot more visually appealing to me because I really hate the art style that Halo 5 went with, and even with Halo 4. I vastly prefer the original art style from the old Bungie Halo games, and to me this just looks a lot more appealing. I like the colors and the character designs a lot more, except for the brutes. Obviously, Craig, the very memey, crappy looking brute that you see Master Chief punch at one point. Yeah, he looked pretty bad, but other than that, I think the game looks pretty decent. I think the gameplay looks fantastic. The combat has that old school Halo feel while also mixing in a couple new features to modernize it a little bit. Also, the Series X is going to have Hellblade 2, which I'm very excited about. I think I'm even more excited for that than Halo Infinite. It looks really, really good. I absolutely loved Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. I thought it was a great game. Definitely a lot better than I thought it was going to be. And this one seems like they've really stepped up the production value, which makes sense because now they're being funded by Microsoft, whereas the first game was kind of a double A indie game. I'm really hoping that they'll improve the combat because I feel like that was the one aspect where Hellblade was kind of lacking in. It absolutely nailed it with the presentation and the production values, and the story was really great. Senua was a very interesting and relatable character. So I really just hope that the gameplay can be a bit deeper and have a bit more variety in it than the first game did. Also, the new Obsidian game, Avowed, looks pretty interesting. We haven't really seen gameplay for it, but from what I've seen from the little teaser trailer, it definitely looks like it's going to be Obsidian's take on the Elder Scrolls formula, similar to how The Outer Worlds was their take on the Fallout formula. Obsidian is a very talented studio, and I can't wait to see what they're going to do with the bigger budgets that Microsoft is giving them. Also, the new Rare game, Everwild, looks pretty interesting. I don't really know anything about the gameplay because they didn't really give us a good idea of the gameplay from the trailer, but I definitely really like the art style and the atmosphere of it, and so I'm hoping that the gameplay will also be something that will appeal to me, and I hope that it'll be a cool game. But other than that, there aren't really that many Xbox exclusives that I'm particularly interested in at the moment. I'll probably play the next Gears of War game, but that hasn't been announced yet, and they did announce the new Fable game, which I've never really been that interested in the Fable games, but I don't know, maybe this one can impress me. Sony, on the other hand, actually has more exclusives that I'm interested in. One of my most anticipated next-gen games is the Demon's Souls remake, which is going to be exclusive to the PS5, and I actually made a separate video just talking about Demon's Souls, so if you want to hear more of my thoughts about it, then you can check that out. I've also always been a big fan of the Ratchet & Clank games, and Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart looks really, really good. Gameplay-wise and visually, it looks even better than the Ratchet & Clank 2016 reboot, and I'm hoping that it'll have a better story than that game did. And I'm also pretty excited for Insomniac's other upcoming big game, Spider-Man Miles Morales. It just looks like a really cool addition to their new Spider-Man series, which I absolutely loved. Their previous Spider-Man game on the PS4, I thought it was fantastic, extremely fun, and the story was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. I know that this game isn't technically the full sequel to Spider-Man PS4, but we're eventually going to get that, and I feel like this will be a cool little appetizer for that game. And I'm really happy that they announced that it's going to have a 60 FPS performance mode. That definitely is going to be fun to see because I always really wanted Spider-Man PS4 to be at 60 frames per second. I feel like the combat and the swinging in that game would just feel incredible at 60 FPS. And I really hope that more games will add a performance mode because, like I've said in previous videos, I'm getting kind of tired of playing games at 30 FPS, and I really want just the option to downgrade the visuals a little bit for 60 because I think it's worth it every time. I also might play Horizon 2 Forbidden West, although, to be perfectly honest, I wasn't the biggest fan of Horizon Zero Dawn. Don't get me wrong, I thought it was a great game and I had a lot of fun with it, but it just didn't quite click with me in the same way it did for most of the other people who played it. I don't really consider it to be a masterpiece, and I wasn't really that impressed with the story, but I am still interested enough in the story to see where they're going to go with it, and hopefully the gameplay will be improved, and hopefully I'll enjoy this one more. And I'm also just really excited for some of the games that we pretty much know are inevitable, but we just haven't seen official reveals for them, like the next-gen God of War, for example. And whatever the next game that Sucker Punch is going to be making after Ghost of Tsushima, I think that will be something special. But yeah, from an exclusives perspective, I'm definitely slightly preferring the PS5, and I think that's the main reason why I'm going to be getting the PS5 first, because I really just want to have the console in my home and ready for when those big games come out so I can play them. Like, Halo Infinite isn't even going to be an exclusive for the Series X technically, because it's also going to be on the Xbox One. And so I could easily just play it there, even though I know it would be a downgraded version. But I will definitely get a Series X eventually. I just don't know if it'll be this year, because I'm mainly going to be focusing on the PS5. But before I go, one last thing that I really want to touch on is that I feel like overall Microsoft is definitely being more pro-consumer than Sony is. I think that Xbox Game Pass was a genius idea, and I'm really glad that they're really leaning into that. Pretty much every game that they showed at their recent showcase is going to be included on Game Pass from day one, which is a really, really good thing for the consumer. Whereas with PS5 games, if you want to play them day one, you'll still have to pay $60 each for them. And recently, Sony announced that the PS4 controller will not work with PS5 games. It will only work with PS4 games on the PS5. Whereas the Series X will be fully backwards compatible with Xbox One controllers, and you'll even be able to use Series X controllers on the Xbox One. I also think that Microsoft has a much better next-gen upgrade system than Sony does. Sony really doesn't have an upgrade system, whereas Microsoft has the Smart Delivery, where you're basically buying two versions of a game for the price of one. And, with the PS5, some PS4 versions will come with a free upgrade to the PS5 version, but then others won't. And then others have, like, a specific kind of upgrade system. Like, I think the new NBA game, you have to buy the Ultimate Edition for $100 in order to upgrade to the PS5 version, which is absolutely ridiculous. And recently, GTA 5 was announced to be getting a PS5 version, and something I'm concerned about is that some devs like Rockstar, they might just say that, hey, we're not going to make the PS4 versions playable on the PS5, so now you have to buy the new PS5 version, which I think is pretty dumb. But yeah, for the most part, that's pretty much all I wanted to say about these consoles. Like I said, I'm definitely getting both of them. I'm really excited for both of them. But I think, for me, for right now, the slight edge goes to Sony in terms of games, the controller, the exclusives. And the Series X, I think, is a better overall console with more power, more backwards compatibility, and just more pro-consumer choices. But I definitely want to hear what you guys think in the comments. Let me know which one you're getting, which one you're more excited about, and I'll see you in the next video.